But let me just briefly say that that was harder than I thought it would be. You know, I knew that this was coming. We all knew that this was coming. But to actually be in that room and to see the callousness and the capriciousness of the government on this, the fact that most of them buggered off to go trick-or-treating with their kids, thinking they didn't even have to be in the room to vote on an issue of fundamental human rights for people, and we had to ring the bells and call them back in, really shows you how little they care about the impact of their careless rhetoric and their careless action on real people. Let's go to question. Oh, one other thing. We haven't had a chance to review the bills in detail, but they're not what we thought they were. So in addition to the anti-trans stuff and the fact that they've all been introduced at the same time, particularly the Health Statutes Amendment Act and the Education Statutes Amendment Act, have all the anti-COVID conspiracy theories as a little Halloween bonus thrown in. And we'll need some time to look at this in more detail, but certainly here on Halloween, the zombies are coming back. And the fact that they decided that it's not enough to punch down on vulnerable kids, let's make people sick while we're at it, is just indicative of this government.
Okay,
Michelle?
Michelle's going
Aaron, you go.
So, one of the things that the Premier talked about earlier today was that, when asked about how this might affect charter rights, for example, she talked about how there are already rights that, restrict, children's freedoms and things like that. I'm just wondering what your take is on this.
Danielle Smith and I took a course together about the Canadian Constitution 30 years ago. One of us was paying attention, and I suspect most courts would not agree with the Premier's point of view on that.
I guess just follow up, like, what is the NDP's next course of action for this?
You know, it's hard for me because I'm not used to being in a situation where nobody is listening. You can't persuade folks on what the right thing to do is. This legislation is going to pass, but between now and the time it passes, and certainly after it passes, our job as the government in waiting is to show people there's a better alternative, an alternative that respects people's dignity, that respects people's human rights, that also addresses people's very real concerns about a society that's changing very quickly, but ultimately is always focused on making sure each person can live a life of dignity. So we're not going to play around with this. We're not going to use every parliamentary trick in the book to extend the time that people in the community are feeling threatened and vulnerable. But we want everyone, not just people in the LGBTQ2S+ community, but every Albertan, to know they don't have to worry about whether their rights are next to be stripped. That this government in waiting will always look after every single person's right to live a meaningful life on this land.
I'm wondering, the provisions in this bill, we've pretty much known about them since January. There were some surprises in the sense of what was introduced in regards to transgender kids. I'm wondering what the NDP caucus has heard from people, either the parents of a transgender child, transgender children, people who love them, that kind of thing.
There were some 4,500 emails in my email box this week. They were not form letters. Every single one of them was a personal letter from someone deeply hurt by this legislation. I've never seen anything like it. So if you're inviting me to an event, it's going to be delayed, man, because they're all But we've heard loud and clear, not just from trans people, not just from people in the community or parents of people in the community, but from Albertans of every stripe, saying, I just don't feel safe here. I don't know if I can have a future here. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking about this place as I love, that I love so much, that I put so much into, is a place that doesn't want me here. And that's really what I'm hearing. Janice, I wonder if I might pick on you for a second to just talk a little bit about what you're hearing in the community.
Yeah, and it's thanks, Naheed. It's honestly it's really emotional, and I'll see if I can get through it. But I just prior to this, I tabled one of literally thousands of emails that we're getting, and as you said, these aren't form letters. These are real people impacted by this legislation. They're teachers, they're parents, they're youth, they're allies of the community, people from all corners of this province, and they're speaking out. And as I've said so many times in that chamber, this is not what Albertans are talking about. I've knocked on doors all over this province. I've been in Banff, Kananaskis, Lethbridge. I've been in my own riding in other parts of Edmonton lately. No one brings this issue up. They want action on healthcare, on housing. They want to be able to have good paying jobs and pay their bills. They're not talking about this. And so the fact that Danielle Smith continues to punch down on some of the most vulnerable people in our province just so she can win a few votes this weekend, it's shameful.
What would you say to people that are reaching out to you guys that, like you just said, but they don't feel like they belong here anymore, even though they're from Alberta, maybe born and raised here?
Yeah. Like so many of us, right? Born and raised, Barhead, Alberta. And yeah, we're hearing from a lot of people who are just like, I don't see a future here. And it's hard, and I get it. And I don't begrudge anybody who thinks they might have to leave this province, but they need to know that they've got a whole lot of MLAs here fighting for them, and they've got a whole lot of people all across this province who are here for them as well. And so to any trans folks who are watching this, who are seeing what's happening in this chamber, we see you, you matter, and we love you, and we won't stop fighting for you.
Are you expecting a gal? I think a gal had spoken about possibly stepping in and intervening and challenging this in court.
Yeah, you can jump in on that. We've been talking with Iraqi as well, because she's been...
Yeah, well, we got the lawyer here too, who can help me when I misspeak. Yes, we understand that there are a number of legal challenges. We understand that Skipping Stone and EGAL have been raising funds successfully, but they will still accept more funds to launch a legal challenge for this, and we are certainly happy to be supportive of that. I am pleased to see that the Premier did not use the nuclear option of a preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause. Let's let the courts decide, and we know that the courts very rarely will decide against fundamental human rights of people. Okay, anyone else? On anything else? Okay. Yeah, sure. Sarah, do you want to take this one or shall I?
You go ahead.
Okay.
If you want me to later, I can.
Sure. So we saw a vote today, a wholesale resounding rejection of the mediator's report with the United Nurses of Alberta. The members are saying this is not enough. And you know what? It's about money, of course it is, but it's about much more than that. It's about respecting the profession. Nurses deserve to be respected. All workers need to be treated with respect. And I'll tell you something. If this government had operated honestly and openly and transparently with the nurses and together created a deal that looked almost exactly the same as the one that went to them, it probably would have passed. I don't want to presuppose what people are going to vote on. But this deal came not just with certain numbers and money, but it came wrapped in a package of mistrust, insults, and disrespect. And the nurses have done what they should do, which is stand up for themselves and stand up for workers, and now the ball's in this government's court. Do you want to add